Welcome, everyone, to the NPC Energy Simulated Journey.
Great to be here.
Today, we're embarking on, well, a really fascinating exploration. We're looking into whether our experience of time, the past, even the future, might be far more flexible, less set in stone than we usually assume.
Definitely. You shared some really thought-provoking material on this.
Yeah, and our mission today is basically to delve into these ideas, unpack them, and see what clicks.
It's a simulated journey into, I guess, the very nature of how we perceive reality itself.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be looking at how we actually build our understanding of time and memory
Uh-huh.
and asking whether those constructions are quite as firm as they feel to us.
Exactly. So we're going to look at how our brains handle time, possibly with this kind of built-in delay.
Right, the lag.
Yeah, and the idea that memory isn't some perfect recording, but something we, put back together each time.
Constantly reconstructed, yeah.
And maybe even the intriguing possibility that what we do right now could actually affect what we think of as the past.
That's where it gets really weird.
Totally. We'll also touch on how powerful our personal stories are, and if, maybe, changing how we see our past could actually change where we're headed.
It's a mix, isn't it? Brain science, a bit of quantum physics strangeness.
And a good dose of what-if thinking.
Oop.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting with the present moment itself, some anonymous sources you shared bring up this concept, this eternal now trap.
Right, and how what we think of as time passing might just be, well, an illusion our brains create for us.
An illusion. How so?
Well, what's fascinating is this idea that the present, which feels so immediate, so real, it might actually be more like a boundary, something we create in our minds, not a fixed point.
Okay.
The source is even called time perception a UI illusion, like a user interface on a computer.
Uh-huh. Like Windows or Mac OS.
Exactly. It's a simplified way we interact with really complex stuff underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Our brains might be doing something similar with time, giving us the smooth flowing experience.
When what's really happening is totally different.
Could be, yeah.
And you mentioned the lag, specifically this thing called brain lag, this, roughly 400 millisecond delay.
Something like that, yeah. When we consciously register something happening.
So what we perceive as the present has technically already gone by.
In that tiny fraction of a second, yeah.
That's kind of mind-blowing. The now you're experiencing is already almost half a second old. It makes you wonder how real our immediate experiences actually are.
Well, neuroscientists have definitely looked into this lag. David Eagleman, as the sources mentioned, explored this idea that our conscious awareness is always just a little behind the curve.
So is our perception like a direct feed of reality, or is it always a step removed, like watching a slightly delayed TV broadcast?
That's a good way to put it. It forces you to ask that question.
And thinking about it from our usual NPC energy angle, the simulation perspective, this lag, it could almost be a feature, couldn't it?
How do you mean?
The system needs that little buffer, that delay, to maybe predict things, to pre-render events before we consciously experience them.
That's an interesting thought, a predictive system.
But what does that imply about, agency, free will? If our actions are based on info that's already slightly old, how much control do we really have in that immediate now?
It's like trying to steer a car where the steering wheel responds, like half a second late, as you said before.
Yeah.
It really does raise fundamental questions about cause and effect. If our awareness is always catching up, are our decisions really starting events in the present?
Or are we just reacting to something that's already kind of rolling?
Exactly. The simulation idea is quite compelling there. It suggests this predictive loop where our experience is constantly being anticipated and rendered for us.
Like a game anticipating your next move.
Precisely.
Our anonymous sources use that Elder Scrolls analogy. Your actions are based on data loaded from the past, the game's past, not the absolute live moment.
Right. You're moving through the world, but your brain's processing info that's already a tiny bit old news.
So how does this reframe being in the moment? Are we ever really experiencing the absolute live present?
Well, if we're constantly responding to this slightly delayed, pre-processed version of reality, then, yeah, being fully present takes on a different meaning, doesn't it?
It sounds like our experience of now is tangled up with memory of what just happened, and our brains guess about what's about to happen.
We're not just passively receiving, we're actively kind of constructing our present based on that delayed feed and our expectations.
Okay, so the present, maybe not so straightforward. Let's shift gears to the past. We usually think of it as fixed, right? Done.
Yeah.
Unchangeable.
The history books are written, so to speak.
But the sources you shared really challenge that. They present memory not as a perfect recording, but as this constantly reconstructed, what was it, a multidimensional save file.
Yeah, I like that term. What's key is realizing that when we remember something, it's not like playing back a video.
Right.
Instead, our brain pieces it back together each time. It uses bits of info, our current understanding, maybe grabs sights from here, sounds from there, emotion.
Assembles it on demand.
Kind of, yeah. Which makes memory incredibly dynamic. But as the sources highlight, it also means it's susceptible to change.
So wait, this reconstructive thing means memory can be altered every single time we access it.
That seems to be the implication.
That's wild. Every time I remember, say, a childhood birthday party, I might be subtly changing the details without even realizing.
Potentially, yes. Reshaping it slightly based on who you are now, what you know now.
What are the implications of that, this malleability of our own personal histories?
Well, if our memories are constantly being rewritten, it really impacts how we see ourselves, our life story. It suggests our narrative isn't fixed, like you said, etched in stone.
It's more like an ongoing project.
Exactly. A process of creation and revision, which can be empowering, right? We can maybe reframe things.
Yeah.
But it's also a bit unsettling.
Yeah, how reliable are my memories? You hear about eyewitness testimony being unreliable for this reason.
Precisely. It's a well-known issue. The memory isn't a perfect snapshot.
Okay, definitely makes you question your own recollections. And then, things get even stranger. Quantum retrocausality.
Yes.
The deep end.
The idea that stuff happening now could potentially influence stuff that happened in the past. Concepts like the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment hint at this nonlinear relationship. That sounds like pure sci-fi.
Well, this is where our everyday intuition about how the universe works just clashes hard with quantum mechanics. Retrocausality challenges that basic A causes B thinking.
Cause always comes before effect, right? That's the rule.
Usually. But these experiments, like the delayed choice one, seem to suggest, well, that a measurement we make now can somehow determine properties of a particle that existed before we even made the measurement.
Whoa. Okay, run that by me again.
It's like, imagine throwing a ball, and somehow your decision later on to look closely at how it landed could change the way it was actually thrown earlier. It's incredibly counterintuitive. Physicists are still grappling with it. It's like the universe has a save button that works backwards. And maybe more personally, our sources mentioned brain stimulation experiments, PTSD studies, suggesting we might even overwrite the emotional impact of past events.
Yes. That's a really promising area.
Being able to dial down the negative feelings tied to bad memories, that would be incredible.
It could be. If we can really alter the emotional charge of past traumas, it could revolutionize treatments for things like PTSD.
Yeah.
It points to amazing plasticity in our brains.
Even for things that already happened.
Right. Affecting how we remember and feel about them now.
Which leads us to what the sources called the wild theory break.
Yeah.
If the present can alter the past, then maybe our current selves aren't the originals. Maybe we're updated versions shaped by future influences somehow.
Now that is a truly mind-bending idea.
But what does that even suggest about identity? Is it stable? Definitive? Are we just getting patched with retroactive updates to our own history?
If our past isn't fixed, then yeah, the foundation of our identity becomes fluid too. What does it mean to be you if that you is potentially being subtly revised as time goes on?
Is there even an original you?
That's the rabbit hole you go down. Are we just a continuous series of updated versions?
Like living in a game where your character's backstory keeps getting tweaked. Okay, so if the past is potentially this fluid, could we intentionally hack our own stories, our narratives, to influence our future positively?
That's the next logical step, isn't it?
The sources talked about narrative hacking, consciously editing our origin stories,
Yeah.
like rewriting your own mythology.
That's a great way to put it. Narrative hacking is basically about taking conscious control of the stories we tell ourselves about our lives.
Okay.
These narratives, they act as a framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
We interpret events through them, form beliefs, guide our actions. So by intentionally examining and maybe altering them.
We could shift our perspective, open up new possibilities, change where we're headed.
That's the potential, yeah.
And this idea, change your story, change your life, it does seem to pop up everywhere. Comedy writing, self-help, even in fiction, like The Matrix or Undertale. Joseph Campbell's work on myth. Why is our personal narrative so significant? What makes these stories so powerful?
Well, they give us coherence, meaning
Yeah.
they help us understand who we are, where we came from, where we think we're going.
Our internal map.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Shape our expectations, influence our emotions, affect our behavior. They're kind of like the operating system for how we navigate the world.
So if you consciously engage with them, maybe revise them, you're tapping into a really powerful lever for personal change.
That's the idea.
So changing how we interpret the past can actually alter the mental algorithm driving us now and into the future, like debugging our own code.
Hey, yeah, debugging your internal code. I like that.
But what practical steps can listeners take? It's not always easy to just decide to see things differently, is it?
No, it's usually a process. It often involves reframing past events. So instead of only seeing the negative or feeling like a victim, you try to actively look for lessons learned, maybe moments of resilience you overlooked, or even unexpected positive outcomes that came out of it later.
Finding the silver lining, kind of.
Sometimes, yeah, or just a different perspective. It can also mean challenging limiting beliefs tied to those past events and consciously building a more empowering story about yourself.
How? Like journaling, talking it through.
Those can definitely help. Journaling, mindfulness, talking with a trusted friend or a therapist, absolutely. It helps bring the narrative out into the open where you can look at it.
Okay. And the sources gave us that practical NPC hack, the slightly unconventional idea of creating and internalizing a totally fake but empowering memory.
Right. The example was like finally winning that school talent show you actually bombed.
Yeah. What's the principle behind that? It sounds a bit out there. Is it just lying to yourself?
I don't think the point is self-deception. It seems to tap into the power of visualization and belief. By vividly imagining and internalizing a positive, empowering experience, even if it didn't actually happen that way, you might strengthen the neural pathways associated with those feelings. Confidence, competence, agency.
So it could have a real effect on how you feel and act now.
Potentially, yes. It's like priming your mental state with positive data, regardless of its historical accuracy. Your brain might respond to the feeling generated by the imagined memory.
Like a mental placebo effect, almost. Your brain doesn't necessarily know the difference between vividly imagined and real in terms of neural impact.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. The emotional and neurological response might be similar.
And we should probably mention the funny note about Mercury retrograde in the sources.
Yes.
A little reminder that trying to rewire your past might hit some unexpected glitches.
Right. Just in case your fake memory of being a chess champion suddenly makes you terrible at checkers. It's a good reminder to approach this stuff with a bit of lightness, maybe.
Yeah, don't expect perfect results. There could be twists when you start messing with your internal stories.
It's exactly.
Okay, so we've looked at the fluid present, the reshapeable past. Now, let's get into that really intriguing idea. Déjà vu.
Ah, that uncanny feeling.
Could it actually be, like, memories from a future self somehow bleeding into our present awareness?
That's one of the more out there interpretations, for sure.
What other experiences might fit that kind of lens? This is where my brain starts to really bend.
Well, this view really challenges our standard linear time idea, doesn't it? Past influences, present influences future. This suggests more of an interconnected loop.
Where the future could echo back.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Things like really strong premonitions or that weird feeling of knowing exactly what someone's about to say.
Yeah.
Maybe you could interpret those through this lens.
Although there are probably more conventional explanations, too.
Oh, absolutely. Psychology has lots of theories about déjà vu and intuition that don't involve time travel. But it's interesting to consider the alternative.
And lucid dreaming. Our sources mentioned it as a potential sandbox for time editing.
Yeah, the idea of consciously exploring dreams to get insights into time and reality's fluidity.
Like having admin rights in your own subconscious simulation. How might that work? Could we actually practice influencing time in dreams?
Well, probably not literally editing past or future events in dreams.
Yeah.
But lucid dreaming, where you know you're dreaming and can control things, it could offer unique space.
Yeah.
You could explore different scenarios, test reactions, maybe gain insights into your subconscious beliefs about time and reality.
Because the usual rules don't apply there.
Exactly. Some theories even suggest dreams might tap into different levels of consciousness, different ways of perceiving time, less constrained than our waking experience.
Interesting. And gut feelings. The sources reframed those as potential beta versions of future moments reaching us.
Yeah, like little previews instead of just random feelings.
That's a cool way to think about intuition. If that's remotely possible, how could we get better at interpreting those nudges, utilizing them?
Learning to trust and interpret them probably involves developing a deeper connection to your internal signals, paying attention to subtle body sensations, emotions, those fleeting insights.
Tuning in more.
Yeah, recognizing patterns, connections that aren't maybe consciously obvious. It takes self-awareness, mindfulness, being willing to listen to those quieter inner voices, not just pure logic all the time.
Like learning to read the cues from your own internal predictive system.
That's a good analogy.
And finally, the sources included that funny fictional conspiracy caller segment.
Oh, right, the Waffle House encounter.
Yeah, someone claiming they met their future self in a parking lot, getting questionable fashion advice. While obviously played for laughs, what does that kind of story tap into? Why are these time travel encounter stories so popular?
Well, even when they're fantastical or funny, they hit on our deep fascination with time, right, and our place in it.
Predestination versus free will.
Exactly. If you meet your future self, is your path set? Or does the meeting itself change things, create a paradox? These stories let us playfully explore those huge, complex ideas, our anxieties, our curiosities about what's coming.
And the mundane setting, like a Waffle House, just makes it funnier somehow.
Totally. It grounds the bizarre in the relatable.
Okay, so as we wrap up this simulated journey with the NPC Energy podcast, the main message seems to be one of potential, malleability,
I think so, that your timeline isn't some fixed script.
but maybe more like a choose your own adventure, one where you have way more influence than you might think.
Exactly. The anonymous sources we looked at strongly suggest our experience of time and memory is much more dynamic, interconnected, less deterministic than we usually assume day to day.
Which opens up that exciting possibility actively participating in constructing our own reality.
That's the key takeaway, I think.
So the challenge becomes, how can you, the listener, step out of what our sources jokingly called NPC mode
Right. Stop just running the base programming.
and actively engage in shaping your own personal narrative, questioning the fixed nature of your past, considering maybe recoding your lore.
I love that phrase, recoding your lore. It's about shifting from passively accepting your life story as it was to actively becoming the author of the story you want it to be.
Which means looking critically at the narratives you've maybe internalized without realizing it.
Yeah. And being willing to revise or even rewrite the parts that don't serve you anymore or don't align with who you want to become.
Consider that final thought from the sources. The world tells us we're defined by our past. But maybe that's just outdated programming.
Old code we're still running.
And you have the potential to mod it, to speed run your character arc, as they put it.
It's a really empowering idea, isn't it?
It is. It shifts the focus. You're not just a product of your history.
You're the architect of your future, using your understanding of how memory and narrative work to consciously guide where you're going.
So, as you, the listener, move forward from this simulated journey, maybe consider that invitation. Try creating a fake but empowering memory. Live as if it were real for a few days.
Remembering it's not about self-deception.
Right. It's an experiment, exploring the power of belief, visualization in shaping your reality. What surprising new possibilities might unlock if you embrace a more fluid, actively constructed sense of self and time.
Definitely something profound to contemplate.
Absolutely. Until our next exploration here at NPC Energy.